Welcome to FCS Delivered, where we talk everything FCS college football. Some even say it's our national debate, Gary Reasons and I. Gary, Craig Haley along with Gary Reasons. Gary, how you doing today and where are you at?
Well, it's fun, Craig. I'm actually in New Jersey. Had a great weekend with the New York Football Giants, although they didn't win the ball game. We'll talk a little bit about what I was doing there. But here, I'm back in New Jersey after my on-campus visit, and it's been a whirlwind.
Well, we're going to talk about that FCS National Awards on-campus visit in segment 2. Our first segment, we're going to look back on an eventful week 2. Then we're going to preview week 3 coming up, the big schedule ahead in our third segment. And Gary, let's get right to it. Last weekend, 3 FCS over FBS wins. St. Francis beat Kent State. Idaho took down Wyoming. And in overtime, Southern Utah topped UTEP. What did you think of these FCS wins over the FBS level?
Well, we hadn't had one the first week, so I think that it's pretty interesting that they came all together here. And this is a big moment in FCS football for any football team that goes up against a larger school, one of the FBS teams, and it's pretty special. And so it can make their season, so to speak. It gives them that confidence that they can compete with just about anybody, especially in their own conference. So if you take a look at what these guys have done in those games, there's positives, there's takeaways they're big moments for that football team, and that's what coaches are looking for. They want to see the effort, and it takes a great effort to get an FBS win. And congratulations to those 3 football teams.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, Delane Fitzgerald, the Southern Utah coach, just his second year there, to get that, it just really establishes what he's trying to do. Idaho's win at Wyoming, the second straight year under Jason Eck. And then St. Francis, shout out to the Northeast Conference, the second win over an FBS team in conference history. Chris Villarreal's the coach at St. Francis. They never trailed in that game. Just phenomenal weekend of FCS over FBS wins. And then there was also our FCS game of the week. It was number 1 South Dakota State, 45-24 over UIW, which was 12th ranked. Tied midway through the third quarter, Gary. I mean, the Jackrabbits kind of took over. Mark Gronowski with a big week, 22nd straight home win. It was a good result for a while for UIW and then kind of got out of hand. But what's your takeaway? Because the margin may not reflect how well UIW played.
Well, really, you got to take a look at both football teams as how they went into that game. So they both had lost the week previously, and they're coming off a loss. And so what do? You got to get your team to rebound. And I think that UIW went up to South Dakota State and with a great game plan, a great opportunity, and they felt like they were confident. And they showed that consistently all the way through 3 quarters. So they were toe-to-toe. It wasn't until in the middle of the third quarter that South Dakota State actually was starting to pull away from UIW. That was a great ball game up to that point, and it showed that both teams are built right, and they've got structure and they've got quality. But really, in the end, South Dakota State, I think they finally found themselves, Craig, at the end of the ball game to where they know that they can, if they play their brand of football, that they can overtake just about anybody at the FCS level. And UIW was that first one that took it on the chin. And I think that South Dakota State now is positioning themselves for the rest of the season to be one of the top contenders.
I think you're exactly right, Gary. I mean, it felt like Jackrabbits football in that second half. I mean, they lost their 29-game winning streak the week before at Oklahoma State, but here they are getting right back on track. They even strengthened where they stand at number 1 in the FCS top 25 poll. I think they have maybe 44 out of 56 first-place votes, which is, prohibitive. In that poll, our Stats Inform FCS top 25 poll that comes out every Monday on TheAnalyst.com. Idaho moved up from 7th to 4th, behind South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Montana State, which is 3-0. So I think that FBS win really, said a lot, especially after a tight performance against Oregon the week before. The big mover of the week, North Dakota, the Fighting Hawks, rallied to beat Montana. They moved from 23rd to 10. That's a huge jump, and they deserve it. Now, I want to ask you about Montana, Gary. We kind of talked about it last September, a little sluggish out of the gate. They struggled to beat Missouri State in the first week. Here they are blowing a lead at North Dakota, and very similar to last year. What's up with the Grizz?
I don't think there's really anything right or wrong to speak of, Craig. The Grizz, they're basically just getting themselves ready for the grind in the season. So the FCS season is still ahead in front of all of them, and so that's exactly what they're positioning for. And they had a great outing, and so they were very deserving to move up in the poll. They made a pretty hefty leap there, but overall they're going to play great football, and I think they show just what type of football team that they have and what we can expect more of this season.
All right, so they're not hitting the panic button. I mean, the Grizz, they went on to the national championship last year, even though they're, as a runner-up, even though they struggled out of the gate. But there are other teams here that maybe have to think about the panic button. They're 0-2. Last year, 8 teams that combined on 7 titles last year, whether they tied for the title, they won an outright title. They're 0-2. Now, 2 of them, Nichols and Duquesne, have played 2 FBS opponents. But when you start 0-2, and some of them are 0-2 playing tough opponents this week, how do you calm, your team when you don't have the start on such a promising year ahead that you are anticipating? What does a coaching staff do, Gary?
Well, they're trying to look at themselves internally and what change did we have? How are we going to overcome that? And what has really put us in the position to kind of just be where we're at? And I think that these teams are still trying to find that true direction. So we look at Chattanooga. I think Austin Peay, and that school has a head coaching change, and so when you have to resettle on a new head coach coming in there, it's going to make a little bit of a difference. So that regime is getting grounded and understanding what the new culture is going to be in that football program, and that's really what you have to do in the preseason. Really call preseason, which are non-conference games, opponents that may be FBS level, before you start your true conference schedule. And so most of these teams are just getting themselves ready to go for that longer stretch down the road. And really, Craig, a lot of times you do not understand what is the makeup of your team until you get into the regular season, simply because you just don't have enough time with some of these transfers or the younger freshmen that have come into your system to be able to fully evaluate them and how they can help your team. So, I think you put some of these games, Craig, in the rearview mirror and don't really worry about all that and just positive and look forward.
We look at UIW. I mean, they underwent a coaching change last year. They had 6 returning starters from that national semifinalist team. They look so much more cohesive this year, off to a strong start. It looks like a big year ahead for the Cardinals. That's an example. I mean, you mentioned Austin Peay. Yeah, the roster looks entirely different. So it does take time, for teams to really gel. 0-2, scares you a little bit, but if you lost to an FBS opponent, you have to take that into consideration. But we would like to see these teams, really kind of pick it up in the win column at least. Now, Gary, I wanted to mention something that's appeared on TheAnalyst.com in recent weeks. It's a new feature. It's called Tracer. Now, that acronym stands for Team Rating Adjusted for Competition and Roster. Now, it's a metric. It's a net efficiency metric, and it really shows a team's rank based on the true talent against their opponents, too. It combines an offensive rating, a defensive rating, and it puts it all together into an overall team rating. Not surprisingly, the top teams right now, North Dakota State is actually number 1 in Tracer. 2 is South Dakota State, and then Idaho's 3. It's data science, and it really projects outwards, not just what has happened, but also what to expect against the schedule coming up. Data analytics, Gary, I mean, as a former player, how have you adjusted to, something like Tracer that is really just another whole level from what, statistics and analytics were years ago?
Well, Craig, any tools that come out in the market that you feel like you can get a little bit of an edge and really understand, one, your football team better, and secondly, how you can view opponents, it kind of levels the playing field and find out where you need to improve, that's really what you're looking at here. So when you start talking about whether we should fully embrace analytics, I don't think you have to just discard them at all. I think you should probably use them as a tool to build what is going to be your football team moving forward and understand them. And so it could give you an opportunity to know that you're good in some areas and there's some areas that you may be deficient with your football team, and you can focus on those in practice, and you can make some strides in games, doing some things differently to help you. So any tool that can give you any kind of an informational adjustment or assessment of your team that can put you in a better position to win football games, I think coaches will embrace that type of a tool. Are they going to go all in on it and just say, hey, we're going to use what the data says in a football decision? That's up to each head coach, and I don't think that they're all going to buy into it. They've got their own intellect in the things that they do on a week-to-week basis.
Well, I've really taken a strong look at it. I hope college football fans, FCS fans, are doing that on TheAnalyst.com. It's called Tracer. It's a net efficiency metric that really weighs how a team is based on its true talent. Now we're going to take a break from FCS Delivered, and when we come back, we're going to find out where's Gary this week with FCS National Awards on campus. This is FCS Delivered.
Bring rings to beach wedding.
FedEx presents Tall Tales of True Deliveries.
Just another day on the job.
We did this for love. See what we can do for your business. FedEx.
Welcome back to FCS Delivered, our second segment, and we always go FCS National Awards on campus. Each Monday on TheAnalyst.com, we announce 7 weekly award winners. 2 of them are from Urban Edge Network and our partnership with HBCU Plus streaming service. Gary, I know you had a great visit this week. Can you tell us about it and who won to bring you to campus?
Well, I tell you, Craig, my football weekend started in New Jersey. I was at the Giants game, part of a unique celebration there of the top 100 New York Giant players of all time that I was part of. And then from there, I got to go out to Easton, Pennsylvania for practice yesterday. And it was a good time to be on campus because, we honored a young man, Elijah Stewart, who had a tremendous receiving game. He had 14 receptions, 245 yards receiving in that football game. And he was the catalyst for them to do a comeback victory. And I had a chance to visit with him over there at that program. So it was pretty fun. It was an important time for me to come to that campus because I got to learn a lot more about the Lafayette Leopards and their Patriot League and how they took control of that a year ago and what was really behind that. And now looking forward, they've got that bullseye on their chest as they are the team to beat in the conference. Coach Troxel right there, John Troxel, good coach. He's in his 3rd season there. He's built a very structured and a very good program, and these guys have all bought in. They've got a few injuries right now that they're trying to fight through to get back on the field, half a dozen or so guys that they need to be able to be highly competitive throughout their conference play, but they've done a great job, and Elijah Stewart has really stepped up here early in this season as a receiver who's a go-to guy for Dean DeNoble to be able to throw that football to. And so they've got a great chemistry working on their offense, and the defense has come around pretty well also. So really, I think that the Lafayette Leopards are trying to position themselves to get back into the mix for another Patriot League conference championship run here. And it might just end up that way if you continue to get these come from behind wins. You take an onside kick that they had to get before they got this touchdown to win the football game. It was a tremendous outing and a game for them. And here we are presenting the award to Elijah.
There you go. So on behalf of Stats Perform and our partners, FedEx and Urban Edge Network, I'd like to present to you the National Offensive Player of the Week for your performance last week. Elijah Stewart, here we go. Show it to him, hey!
What a great time and a great opportunity to go out there to Easton, Pennsylvania and meet a great football team, and really had a great time out there, Craig.
I mean, we're talking Patriot League where the academic demands are so high, but here's a team you got some athletes that they're there to win as well. I think back to Colgate getting to the national championship game the one year against Delaware. I mean, what's it like being around all these young student athletes that are high academic and successful as athletes?
Well, Coach Troxel, I think, and I talked to him about his roster quite a bit, and he said, he's got a great blend of athletes and players from all over the place. They've actually reached out. They've recruited down in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, brought guys in from that region to come up to Lafayette. And you're right, Craig. This is an academic first university, and that's exactly what the Patriot League is. But there's some misconceptions about this team, and I think across the Patriot League, and that is that people think that perhaps they're a non-scholarship league. That is incorrect. They have the 63 scholarships at their disposal at Lafayette, and that's what it is across the entire Patriot League. So this is a true FCS conference now, and it is still trying to get on even pace with all of the schools around across the FCS, and I think they're there. They had a great outing a year ago. Last year, they won the conference championship, and they're just putting in place the culture and the things that are there. Craig, I learned a lot about the history of college football when you go to a university like Lafayette, and they started playing football in the late 1890s there. So pretty impressive. I saw footballs in their trophy case that were labeled 1902 and 1901. That's pretty old. Anybody, you got one of those footballs hanging around?
Well, I'm getting up there in age, but I won't disclose how long ago I started on football. Well, Gary, I tell you, this visit to Lafayette was just tremendous. We love to see the video each week and hear about your talks with the team. Now, our other award winners for week 2, Southern Illinois linebacker Ben Bogle was the Stats Reform Defensive Player of the Year, Player of the Week. The St. Francis kicker Mac Plummer for that FBS win. He was a national award winner. TJ Thomas Jr., the Elon running back, was our Freshman of the Week. Wofford Terriers, our Team of the Week. They beat Richmond on the road a week after beating Gardner-Webb on the road. What a start. And then our HBCU weekly award winners, Alabama State defensive and Traquan Thomas was the player. The team was South Carolina State for their road win over the Citadel. Just tremendous to see these performances from week to week. Now, Gary, as we're going to go to break, and when we come back, you and I will have our Pick'em segment and look at our game of the week. Welcome back to FCS Delivered. Gary Reasons and I. Gary, what a schedule ahead here in week 3 of FCS college football. There's actually more FCS versus FCS games. Those FBS schedules are kind of winding down. I think there's 11 more of those matchups this week. And guess what? There are 4 games that match 2 teams in our Stats Reform FCS Top 25 nationally ranked opponents. One of them we know quite well. It's UAlbany, number 17, at number 4, Idaho off its big win. They're both 1-1. It's Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus and SWX. It's a playoff rematch, Gary. UAlbany rallied to win last year 30-22 in the FCS quarterfinals. That was the first time they've ever met. What do you think of this meeting here in the regular season?
Well, it's 2 teams, Craig, that I have a lot of respect for both of their head coaches. So Greg Gattuso at UAlbany did a great job a year ago, and he's still on the task this year of getting them back to where they want to go at the top of that conference. And then also you've got Jason Eck at Idaho, the big win over Wyoming last week over an FBS opponent. This is going to be one of those games where one of these teams, this is going to make their season. I really think that is the case for these 2 teams. And so, unfortunately, I have to go with the home team because Idaho plays well at home in that special Kibbe Dome that they play in, and I think that they're going to be the one that comes out of this with a W. So that's my pick on this ball game, Craig.
Yeah, it's a great game of the week. I mean, there's several others you could choose from as well. I'd say the key matchup to watch would be UAlbany's offensive line versus Idaho's defensive line. Keyshawn James newbie has got 5 sacks already for the Vandals. Those are 2 of the more experienced units on those teams. I mean, UAlbany is looking quite different. I think they only have 7 regular starters back. The defense is pretty veteran for Idaho, but I just think you're right. Being at home in the Kibbe Dome, a little bit of a revenge factor. Certainly standout game. I'm gonna go with the Vandals as well. Now, Gary, we mentioned there's some other nationally ranked teams facing off. UIW is at Southern Illinois. They're right back in the Missouri Valley Conference. And then one of the other ones I want to mention is Mercer at Chattanooga. This is, in the SoCon. What a way to start the conference schedule. What do you see in this one, Gary?
Well, Mercer, they're playing well. They've got a little bit of momentum, and I think they're going to continue. And Chattanooga, I think they're still trying to find themselves, Craig. 0-2, and I think that even though they're playing at home, I think that this is one that Mercer can get on top early, and if they can carry it on through the end of the ball game, they could come out of there with a big W.
I didn't have Mercer in my preseason rankings when I put them out in May. And I did a video a few weeks later saying, hey, if there's teams that I've overlooked, this is one, and Mercer was on that list. They've been very impressive. I'm going to go with the Mocs at home, just because they kind of need it with this 0-2 start. Now, there's one other nationally ranked game I want to mention. It's Nichols at Sacramento State. They met last year to open the season. Sacramento State won 38-24. They're both 0-2 against FBS opponents. They've actually played well against FBS opponents, but they're 0-2 as well. Who gets the W here and gets in the win column?
Well, I think this is going to be a quality football game because you've got two very, very good football teams. And as you talked about playing FBS opponents, you've got to bring your best effort. And both of them did that in those ball games. They kind of hung around pretty well. Boy, you just look at what Nichols did late in the ball game all the way against the LSU Tigers. I'm telling you, that's impressive. I think that this is probably a game that Nichols can win on the road. So I'm going to go with the Colonels in this one, and we'll see where it ends.
I agree. I mean, I think it's dangerous picking against Sac State, but I think Nichols has been impressive. I think they can get it done. It's a good year for the Southland Conference. You and I both like UIW to maybe get a win here at Southern Illinois. Some of our other games in the pick 'em, we're a little boring. We keep picking the same teams. Jackson State, we have them beating Southern. Central Arkansas in a big United Athletic Conference game. We have them against Austin Peay. We also go with Elon against a Western Carolina team that really needs a win. We'll see about that. Now, Gary, I mean, it's a big week. I know you want to get home and watch some of these games. Now, I want to ask you, at MetLife Stadium for the Giants 100 Greatest Players celebration, were you flashing a Super Bowl ring to the crowd?
Well, I have a couple of Super Bowl rings, proud to have them. And yes, I have one on my hand. And so it was pretty interesting how the Giants had put together that weekend event. And it was very appreciative for me and all of the other top 100 players of all time that were selected for the New York Giants. And being able to go out there, they first had a fan fest, Craig, on Friday evening to where they had a line. All the fans were out there on the field, and they created a walkthrough line for us to go up to a big stage that they had at midfield, and we all stood out there. And so we got the high five and everything with fans on either side going out to the field and coming back. That was pretty fun. They also did something at halftime as well of the Giants ball game and recognized all of us by position groups, and that was pretty special to be in front of the game crowd as well and to do an introduction of us, 2 times out there. So very, very great job by the Giants of bringing forward their top 100 players of all time.
Thrilling to hear. I think the entire FCS kind of shares in when somebody like you is representing the FCS level. Well, Gary, this brings an end to our national debate of the week, FCS Delivered. We know it's a great schedule ahead, and I hope all our fans, tune in and watch these great games. We thank you for tuning in to this week's episode, and we will be back in another week to talk more FCS Delivered.